The Tour du Mont Blanc, a trail that circles Europe's highest peak, taking you through some of the most breathtaking mountain landscapes. 170 kilometers across France, Italy and Switzerland, through the heart of the Alps. A trail that takes you through glaciers, mountain passes and villages that feel frozen in time. It's a journey that pushes you to your limits, physically, mentally, emotionally, while immersing you in nature's raw beauty, leaving you with a peace that lingers long after. Some come seeking adventure, others a moment to escape. Some love it, others find it too challenging. Some push through, others turn back. But the truth is, the Tour du Mont Blanc never leaves anyone indifferent. Whether it's a challenge, the beauty, or the transformation, it stays with you long after the journey ends.
I know. First breakfast on the TMB.
Espresso.
And having sandwich with the coffee. Yay!
We started our hike in late August, just as summer was beginning to fade. The hiking season on the TMB usually runs from mid-June to mid-September. Any earlier or later, and you might run into snow on the higher passes. This was my very first mountain hike, and I had no idea what to expect. But I was grateful to be experiencing it with Heather. We met on the Camino de Santiago and became close friends. And at some point we started talking about doing another long-distance trail together. And that's how we ended up here. The first stage took us from Les Houches to Lake Contamines, about 20 kilometers, usually a 6 to 8 hour walk. The weather was perfect, warm, even hot at times. The trail passed through forest and open meadows, leading us through quiet villages and alongside mountain streams. The elevation gain was moderate, making it for a gentle start to the journey. Though carrying a heavy backpack and knowing we'd be camping the whole way gave us a small taste of what lay ahead.
There we go, that's how it goes. One goes on each side.
Day 2 on the TMB began with a rainy morning. My body felt like I'd run a marathon the day before, adjusting to the weight of my backpack and the climbs ahead. Leaving Lake Contamines, the drizzle continued, wrapping everything in mist. The hills and forests disappeared into the clouds, giving the morning a quiet, almost magical feel. The day started with a steep climb through a moss-covered forest. The air was fresh, and mountain streams rushed past us. It was tough, but the cool air made it bearable. We stopped at Chalet Refuge de Nan-Boran for a coffee and breakfast before pushing on steeper, rockier, still hidden in the mist, with the trail ahead barely visible. Beyond Refuge de la Balme, the trees disappeared, opening up to rugged mountain terrain. The climb to Col du Mont was long and demanding, and this was where I really felt it, my fear of heights. Something I'd be facing a lot on this hike. Some sections were steep and exposed, making my legs unsteady. But the beauty around me was so overwhelming, I couldn't stop pausing, taking a breath, and soaking it all in. Then, at the top, something incredible happened. We rose above the clouds. After hours of hiking through thick mist, the mountains suddenly stretched endlessly in every direction. It was truly breathtaking.
What a contrast.
We just reached the peak and we were walking through the cloud. Nothing was visible. And now, oh my god, I have never seen anything like that. This is so magical. Wow. It's much harder than I thought. We started our hike this morning around 8 a.m. It's 4 p.m. and I think we're around maybe 10 kilometers. We took some breaks, but no more than 20 minutes each. But we now made it to the refugio, which is 2,443 meters. We're not staying here tonight, but if you're booking refugios when doing Tour du Mont Blanc, it might be a wonderful place to stay. So beautiful, look at the views. So beautiful. Wow. Heading out to hike the TMB with no experience in mountain trekking, I naively assumed it was just another long-distance walk. I'd done long hikes before and had pretty strong endurance. But of course, I quickly realized you can't compare a mountain hike with a total 10,000 meter elevation gain to a normal long-distance walk. But maybe that naivety isn't such a bad thing after all. Sometimes, if you overthink things too much, you never actually start. The climb up to Refuge de la Croix du Bonhomme was tough. Rocky paths, steep sections, and plenty of moments when I had to push through my never-ending fear of heights. But at the top, the views were absolutely unreal. One of those moments when the struggle fades because you're surrounded by something so vast and so beautiful. We stopped for a quick drink, letting the view sink in before continuing down towards Les Chapiaux. The descent was easier as we reached the valley. It felt like stepping into another world. Quiet, remote, with a large camping site, 2 little shops, a hotel with the cafe, and no phone signal. It was the kind of luxury you rarely find these days, being somewhere where you can truly disconnect, completely unreachable.
How to dry a tent in 2 minutes.
Our campsite for tonight with a very nice view. Really happy with the meals, really warm and hearty. And I'm having my lentils and potatoes with a bit of mayo, I guess. Happiness. Third day, beautiful and challenging. Slept very well today. It's really cold, but looks like it's going to be a nice day. The first half from Les Chapiaux to Courmayeur felt easy, with gentle trails and little elevation. I walked with lightness in my steps, smiling at the sheer beauty of the Alps. It felt like moving through a painting, each turn revealing another breathtaking view. But as the trail steepened, things began to shift. The ease I'd felt earlier disappeared, and suddenly I found myself struggling, not just physically, but mentally too. It wasn't just the physical challenge, the endless climbs, the hours of steady effort to reach the peak. It was something deeper. I found myself frustrated, almost fighting with my own thoughts. I couldn't quite explain why, and that only made it harder to keep going. It wasn't that I wasn't grateful, I was. I knew how fortunate I was to be there, to be surrounded by all this beauty, but with every step uphill, something inside me started to bubble up, like I was dragging more than just my backpack, as if unprocessed emotions, things I hadn't dealt with, were surfacing. Maybe that's what happens when you spend this much time in the mountains, away from distractions. There is nothing left to do but face yourself.
It's so beautiful, look. But because it's so tough, I feel like I'm constantly in pain and really annoyed with everything. I feel like this is such a special experience, but it's definitely not just a hike. And I'm really appreciative of this moment, especially when I reach the peak of the day. But now I'm just angry with everything, with myself, with everyone. How can you be angry when there is so much beauty around you? How is it possible? And yet, I'm just really annoyed. But give me another half an hour to get there and rest, and I'll be the happiest person on earth. You really need to love suffering to do this hike. Hiked up to Refugio Elisabetta, which is a slight hike from the main trail. If you're hiking from Le Chapiot towards Courmayeur, then there's little stops, not that much water or food. And if you want to stop for the food or water in Refugio Elisabetta, you have to climb up. So we left our backpacks somewhere in the trail, and I really hope that no one will take our backpacks, which are just down somewhere. Beautiful, very beautiful, but really, 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 really tough. But I love it. When I sit down and I relax and I have my water, I feel much better.
After a short rest at Refugio Elisabetta, perched on the mountainside with the stunning view over the glacial valley of Vallon de la Lippe Blanche, we continued towards Courmayeur. The trail was gentle, mostly flat, a welcome change after the morning's climb. By the time we reached Hobo campsite, all we could think about was a proper shower, a good meal, and some rest. As we settled in, charging our phones and stretching our tired legs, we turned our thoughts to the next day, where we'd sleep, since finding a spot wasn't as straightforward as we'd hoped.
We're leaving Courmayeur with beautiful views and the glacier behind us. And we're heading to Rifugio Bonatti, but we're not sure if we can stay there.
One of the decisions we made early on when hiking the TMB was to camp. We hadn't planned everything in advance, so instead of booking refugios months ahead, we opted for the flexibility of camping. But camping on the TMB isn't as simple as setting up a tent anywhere. It comes with rules. In France, camping is allowed in designated areas, but in Italy and Switzerland, wild camping is strictly prohibited. Since we were in Italy, we had to stick to official campsites. The section between Courmayeur and Rifugio Bonatti posed a challenge, as there were no campsites and wild camping wasn't allowed. The next official campsite, Camping des Glaciers, was further along in Switzerland, near La Folie. We initially hoped to camp near Rifugio Bonatti, but seeing there were no campsites, we decided to continue towards the Rifugio to check if they had any availability. And though I was a little nervous about where we would sleep that night, I was completely mesmerized by the grandeur of the Alps. This part of the TMB between Courmayeur and Rifugio Bonatti is truly one of the most stunning segments. The views were absolutely out of this world, with towering peaks/valleys and glaciers stretching as far as eye could see. It felt like walking through a postcard, and every turn revealed even more beauty than the last. When we arrived at Rifugio Bonatti, we were surprised to find spots available, despite hearing that refugios often book up months in advance. I was excited about the opportunity, but Heather preferred to stick to our original camping plan, so she took a slight detour of the TMB to camp, while I stayed at the Rifugio. We agreed to meet the next day, each having a different experience. Rifugio Bonatti, named after the legendary mountaineer Walter Bonatti, is one of the TMB's highlights. Completely remote, with no roads, all supplies are delivered by helicopter. Since opening in 1983, it has offered a truly unique experience. I met some wonderful people and enjoyed a communal dinner. The sleeping arrangements in the communal room were a bit of an adjustment. Since the beds were close together, I ended up sleeping between two snoring strangers. It made me miss the peace of camping, but it was all part of the TMB experience. I quickly fell asleep with my earplugs so I could wake up early in the morning, ready to continue the journey.
It's ahead, so we pass it.
In the morning, I reunited with Heather, and we swapped stories from the previous day over coffee, admiring the golden morning light spilling over Mont Blanc, one of the most memorable sights of the entire 10 days of hiking. Looking back on my stay at Refugio Bonatti, I'm grateful for the experience, but after doing both, I was glad I chose to camp. The flexibility of not rushing, waking up to the stillness of the mountains, and the freedom of being closer to nature made it unforgettable. Of course, we were lucky with the weather. Had it been rainy or cold, I might feel differently. But if I were to do the TMB again, I'd still choose camping, even with the extra weight of the gear. The hike to Refugio Elena was breathtaking. It was our 5th day of the TMB, yet we still couldn't stop gasping in awe at the beauty of the Alps. By this point, we were settling into our rhythm, and the weight of our backpacks was becoming easier to bear. We stopped at Refugio Elena for a well-deserved breakfast and coffee before heading towards the Swiss border.
Just
But then I went up
and then
and then down
and down
and then up.
and then up and then. Oh, I see. We are in Switzerland. Everything is so green and lush. We are hiking towards La Folie, and the second part of the day is just going down. It's so nice. And the weather is so great. We've been so lucky with this weather. I think it's our day 5 on the TMB. It's been challenging physically. First couple of days have been very challenging emotionally as well. But now it's challenging but pleasant. I think our bodies and minds adapted to it.
After reaching Grand Col Ferret and crossing into Switzerland, the hike suddenly felt much easier. Maybe it was because our bodies had adapted to the rhythm and the weight of our backpacks, or perhaps the lush green Swiss landscape made everything feel lighter. With less elevation, we had more time to take in the stunning views. We stopped frequently for snacks and coffee, chatting with other hikers we kept running into along the way. Eventually, we made our way toward La Folie, where we set up camp at Camping Les Glaciers, right next to the river. It turned out to be one of my favorite campsites on the TMB.
Good morning. Having my breakfast. Swiss cheese, as we're in Switzerland now. And bread. We stayed in a really lovely campsite this night. It was a bit cold. I had all my clothes that I own on me. Yeah, ready to find some coffee and excited. Every day is very exciting. It's a very challenging part here. We're walking on a tiny road. By the way, I'm recording this, but I'm being very careful, and there are trees now. But from La Folie to Champex is very challenging if you're scared of heights. So there are a couple of moments where there's literally nothing, and also people crossing by as well. Bonjour. So you need to give them space. And it's a very tiny road, but the views, as you can see, are magnificent. But if you're scared of heights, you have to be prepared. We lost the track of days. It might be day 6 or day 7, but we are slowly but surely approaching back France and Les Houches. So I think, including today, we still have 3 hiking days.
After a night at the campsite at Champelac, we continued our journey towards the end. During our time on the TMB, the UTMB race was happening, and witnessing these runners in action was nothing short of incredible. The Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc is one of the toughest endurance races in the world. 170 kilometers, over 10,000 meters of elevation gain, and no stopping. While we took 10 days to hike the route, these athletes were running in just 24 hours, pushing through exhaustion, altitude, and relentless terrain. The trails were carefully navigated. Steep mountain passes, tangled roots, loose rocks became their race course. Day and night they ran. Even as we lay in our tents, we could hear them passing by, their headlamps flickering in the dark. Knowing how hard the terrain was on foot, I couldn't wrap my head around the strength it took to run it. They just kept going, through forest, across rocky slopes, over the mountain passes, until they made it back to Chamonix. The night at Le Petit, we rested, while they pushed on through the darkness. It was something I'll never forget, truly humbling.
Day 7 on the TMB, and we are leaving Switzerland. Oh, is it 8? Maybe it's 8. And we have one more day today, the full day, and tomorrow we'll be arriving to Chamonix. Today is going to be tough. 2 big mountains. Our last full day on the TMB. Tomorrow we are supposed to descend to Les Houches, but we've been incredibly fortunate with the weather. The weather has been absolutely fabulous. I think Heather saw a goat. Maybe she's been dreaming to see a mountain goat, which is very common to the Alps, but so far we haven't encountered any. It's been super wonderful, challenging. The weather has been great, no storms, no rain. Just one morning it was raining a bit. Apart from that, it's been like this. So grateful, so grateful. So we're doing the last climb of the TMB, and now it's the UTMB race, the main race. And we are walking the same path as the runners run. It's 5 p.m. August 31st, and they started yesterday at 6 p.m. So they're running almost 24 hours. Wow, that's so inspiring. So this is the part I was fearing the most, the ladders that bring you all the way here. Gosh, I'm so scared.
On our journey from La Petite to La Flégère, we hiked the route that led us through the famous ladders of the Tour du Mont Blanc, one of the most intense and challenging sections of the trail. By the time we reached them, the sun was setting, and we still had a long way to go to our camping spot, so turning back wasn't an option. For some, the ladders are no big deal. Heather moved through them with ease. But for me, with a deep fear of heights, it wasn't just a climb. It was a confrontation with my deepest fear. The steep drop below, the weight of my backpack pulling me back with every step, and the narrow metal rungs beneath my hands, each movement felt like an overwhelming change. My legs trembled, and at some point I bursted into tears, pushing through, gripping the rungs tightly, refusing to look down. Then, just when I thought I couldn't continue, we saw them. Mountain goats, effortlessly navigating the rocky terrain. It felt like they were guiding us, their calm presence offering reassurance, as if they were spirits of the mountain watching over us. Reaching the top was like breaking through the surface of water, exhaustion and relief washing over me. It wasn't just about the climb. It felt like I was releasing years of pent-up emotions, one of the most transformative and humbling moments of my entire journey. The morning after our last night on the trail, I woke up feeling unwell, feverish with a sore throat. Heather wasn't doing much better either, having caught the infamous Tour du Mont Blanc norovirus we'd heard whispers about along the way. Yet there was still the final descent to Les Houches ahead of us. It wasn't the easy finish we'd imagined, but in the end, it was just another part of the journey, just like everything else. I often find myself wondering, why do we take on challenges like this? Why do we seek out difficult paths? Is it to connect with nature? To disconnect from the noise of the world? Or is it something deeper? This desire to test our limits, to experience life in its most raw form. Maybe it's all of those things. But ultimately, I think it's about creating space for ourselves. Space to be still, to listen to our thoughts, to feel our emotions, and to be simply present. It's about stepping away from the daily rush and coming back to who we truly are. This journey, the breathtaking beauty of the Alps, the challenges, the awe and struggles, has been one of the most memorable experiences of my life. It's something I'll carry with me always. So if you ever thought about taking on a challenge like this, I'd say go for it. Sometimes the hardest path leads us to the most meaningful places, and the beauty you encounter along the way will stay with you forever.